besides U2 being, I think, one of the greatest rock bands that ever was, especially if you see him live, that really kind of turned me into a huge fan, is, for me, the real signature thing is the Edge's use of effects. I think he comes up with great guitar lines, but a lot of them are very effect-driven, and I think, he's the man for that kind of stuff. Now, his early setup was pretty simple, and if you see his rack now, it's huge and wall of amps and a big switching system that brings all the effects in and out of line and everything like that. So your average guy can't really do anything like that, because who's going to move that and who can afford that? So for us, there's some really basic things we can talk about to get a good sort of Edge sound. In its rawest form, it's pretty simple. It's really just an overdrive, a delay, and sometimes a wah. The delay you want to be pretty particular about. You want to get one that's got a tap tempo and one that's got rhythmic subdivisions, as in the one we're going to talk about is the dotted eighth note, which is a huge thing for a lot of the Edge sounds, like Streets Have No Name and Bad and all those big hits. So let's talk about the overdrive I'm going to use first. I had the amp set distorted at first, and I used the delay in the effects loop. I'm not going to do that right now. I just want to show you how you can get sort of a portable Edge sound. I often don't really use effects loops. A lot of the amps I play are more vintage style and don't have effects loops, so I've kind of worked out a lot of these things to use in the front of the amp. And plus, if I bring my pedal board with me, I kind of have it at all times, and don't have to worry about trying to plug into an effects loop or anything like that. So here's one of my favorite overdrive pedals. There's a lot out in there in the market, lots of great ones. This is a ZVEX Box of Rock. It's designed around a Marshall JTM 45, but we're plugging it into the Vox, so it's going to take on some sort of that Vox sound. It has a ton of output, this pedal, so I have the volume set sort of unity to the amp. And the tone, I'm setting according to taste. It's about 1 o'clock, and the gain, I don't have too high. It's right about noon. I've got a boosts function on this side, and we're not going to be using that in this particular tune. So let me just play you the amp straight. And then with that on, just get some kind of breakup. Okay, now the big thing, over onto the delay here. Alright, so for that basic, really common Edge dotted eighth note, delay effect, if we pan in, I'm going to put my mix level at about 50%. So that means the delay is going to be just about as loud as my first note. Now, I'm going to bring my feedback, in other words, the amount of delays, down a little bit. So this is always really dependent upon how much it's going to fit into the track. In other words, like where you're playing with and what tune. So you got to do that to taste and what you think is going to be happening in the tune. Now here, this pedal I really like because I can choose my subdivisions very easily. I'm going to go down to the dotted eighth note, and I have it set on digital delay. It says delay line. It's a digital delay. Now, they have a number of different ones here: dynamic, reverse, ping pong. We're not going to use any of those. What I also like about this pedal is a few kind of cool functions. The Edge uses a Roland delay, an old kind of big rack mount unit, and he also uses the TC Electronics, I think the 2290. I think that's the number on it. It's another huge rack mount effect. So TC has kind of blended some of this stuff into this little pedal, which I think is a cool little floor box. What it contains in it, which is really nice, is modulation. And what that means is on your repeats of your delay, you're going to get a little bit of a chorus effect. So let's see if we can hear that. It's pretty subtle, but it's nice. Let's slow that down. Here in those repeats, you've got a little bit of like a chorusy sort of sound. That's kind of nice. Also, they have a color knob. I have it set on analog, and it basically tries to emulate the sound of an analog delay. If I have it all the way up on digital, it's a little more bright, the delays. So I kind of like them a little darker than that. All the way in the dark end here, you have a tape emulator. So it's a little too dark for this, so I'm going to go to somewhere in the middle there for analog. Okay. So I could tap in my tempo. Now I'm going to play some of that without delay. So here. Now with. Without. With. Now the reason why that sounds so cool is we have the dotted eighth note delay going on here. If I had a quarter note, it wouldn't get that cool same sort of rhythmic thing, da-da, da-da, da-da. And so it sets up a nice rhythm based upon the delay. Now, for something like Bullet the Blue Sky, you know, he would use a wah pedal in sort of that Jimmy Page sort of way. So if you get a longer delay, slow that down a little bit, and maybe use a wah. You can step on your wah pedal. Right here I've got the Dunlop, it's a Jimi Hendrix wah. Bring that mix down a little bit on the delay, and so sometimes I use that for that kind of spacey stuff. So just really opening the wah as you hit the notes. Playing off the delay. It's sort of like what Jimmy Page does in Dazed and Confused. So it's just something to kind of poke at with the edge. Now, in a couple of seconds, we're going to look at the EBow. But since that's on the guitar, we're going to take a different look at that.